Wyatt Jenkins, welcome to the Preconstruction podcast.
Hey, Gareth, great to meet you. Excited to be on the podcast. I've been listening to it for a while. I'm really glad you do this.
Good man. So, Senior VP of Product for Procore. Let's hear the crack from Procore. Let's hear what you've got for us. Before we go into that, give us a quick bio of your background, just a quick snapshot, and then we'll get into all the good stuff.
I think maybe the one data point worth mentioning is that my parents were in construction. So the family business when I was growing up was my dad was a general contractor. He built cell phone towers in the 80s and 90s when the cell phone boom happened. So if you know those towers that look like a tree in the forest, I built a lot of those in the Rocky Mountains when I was growing up. So growing up, I was on a job site, doing things you'd let a high school kid do, pulling cable and fetching coffee, like whatever else I could do. But so my heart's in it. And my mom ran the back office. She ran the financials and everything. And my dad was mostly in the field. And they had like 100-person shop. So that's how I grew up. I have a lot of empathy for the industry. I like being in the field. I like to this day, I love going on job site walks and figuring out what technology folks are using. So that's how I started. I gave you the quick pitch on my career. I can break it into sort of 4 bullet points. It's a weird journey. Bullet point 1, I was an electronic musician and a DJ, and I flew around the world and played music for people. So that's probably a different podcast. Bullet point 2, I started a tech company that sold MP3s on the internet back in 2001 because I was a DJ and I was solving my own problem. And that's what got me into tech. And then after that, I sold my company and went to a company called Shutterstock, where I joined when it was really small. If you know Shutterstock, they do like images, video. I joined when it was about 30 people, and I left when it was maybe 1,800 and took it public. And so I got to be the head of product engineering and design at a pretty good size public company at a tech company, Shutterstock, for a while. Left that, and I went to Silicon Valley. After that, I was in New York. And in Silicon Valley, I did a couple growth stage companies. So I did Patreon, which is kind of a creator, podcasting, YouTuber SaaS product. And I did Optimizely, which is an A/B testing data analytics product. So I've been head of product at those couple of companies. And then, now I'm full circle and I couldn't be happier. I'm back in construction. I moved to Santa Barbara to raise my little girls, who, by the way, could come in at any moment, honestly.
Yes, that's what I like to hear. The more
I'll just let everybody know.
Yeah, love it. I have a few questions for them as well. I want to find out what it's like living in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, I moved to Santa Barbara to raise my family, and I met Tui, the founder of Procore out here, and just love the business, and the product is so exciting. And after doing a long stint in tech, I'm over 20 years now. It just felt really good. I feel like I came home to construction again, but I could leverage the 20 years of tech company knowledge that I gained, running around doing all that stuff. So it does feel full circle in a lot of ways.
Brilliant. And I love the fact that you were involved with the data analytics company as well. We're going to dig into data quite heavily later on. So that experience, I would imagine, is Procore are reaping the rewards for that. And then what about Procore, the ecosystem? I mean, for me, obviously, when we all know Procore, but from my understanding with Procore, it's a construction management software in the cloud. That's what people talk about. That's what it's here. It's more on the delivery side. But that's not the case, isn't it? Not, Wyatt. You did show us a fantastic graph, which, as you're talking, I'm actually going to put it up on YouTube when we're doing it. But just talk us through briefly about the suite of products right now.
Yeah, Procore, we've grown significantly in the last 5 years or so in particular. And if you go to our investor website, you can see, but let me just go through our 4 solutions. First is Precon. Yes, we have a pre-construction solution. We have estimating, we have bidding, we have BIM. Next is project execution, which everybody knows us for, and that's construction management, quality and safety. Some of those products are 20 years old, and that's our bread and butter. So of course that's the biggest part of our brand. We also now have a workforce management solution. We've been really trying to help our customers with all these labor issues. And so we acquired a company called LaborChart back in 2021. And that combined with T&M tickets has become our workforce management solution. So labor scheduling and that kind of thing. And then, probably one of the most exciting parts of our portfolio right now, the fourth key solution is financials. Construction financials, we have a very mature product that we have an ERP platform with over, I think, 16 different ERP connectors. We have budgeting, we have invoicing, and we're launching ProcorePay this year so you can actually move money. So pre-con, project execution, workforce management, construction financials is our four solutions. And then I think what's cool about Procore and why I joined, everything's on one platform. So it's just one single user experience that's available on mobile, that's available on web. It's all available via API for our partners in the ecosystem to build on top of. We continue to connect all the data together. We have a common data platform across all these solutions. It's exciting, the power and the things we're able to do by having shared data sets from pre-construction to closeout.
Brilliant.
And
Love it.
how we can combine all of that. We're really just scratching the surface, Gareth. It's sort of exciting in the next 5 years.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And especially as you say, I mean, you legacy wise, you've got the project management and the execution part it wrapped up. Anybody I speak to on the project management superintendent side, they say Procore, you're doing really well. You're going international. I hear people in the UK and Ireland now talking about you guys. It's exciting stuff. But let's talk pre-construction and estimating, because obviously I think it's difficult. The pre-construction and estimating part it's difficult. We've seen that, but again, through acquisition from Esticom in October 2020. I mean, how important was that acquisition? Obviously, you were in March that year, so you would have had a little. I'm hoping a little bit of a say in that. First of all, how difficult was it? I would imagine you went out and looked at a heap of platforms and softwares to say, right, why Esticom, and how easily was it integrating it into the Procore suite?
Yeah, I feel like we won the lottery. I mean, the team at Esticom are just wonderful. I was like slacking back and forth with one of the founders this morning. I told him, "Hey, I'm going to be on Gareth's podcast. If there's anything, we want me to talk about," and he lit me up with all kinds of exciting stuff. But we did look at a bunch of estimating tools. I mean, one thing that's really important for us, and yeah, this was my first acquisition when I joined. So I was 4 months in and I went straight for pre-con. I mean, I told Tui and Paul, you can probably hear my little girl. I told Tui and Paul, look, I think pre-con is where some of the wild innovation is going to happen, right? I think pre-con is still a lot of disconnected one-off point solutions. And if someone can get all this data to sit in a single place, and for all these workflows to be connected, from bidding to estimating to financials, I think this is what's going to change construction. We can go more into that later, but I was just very, very bullish on pre-con coming out of the gate for a number of reasons. But it wasn't that hard of a choice, to be honest, because we have a great partner ecosystem, and Esticom was an awesome partner. They had been an awesome partner for years. We had done lots of deals together. They were already deeply integrated into Procore via our API. And so, when we looked around at all the options, there was only 2 or 3 that could check that box and already were partners and already deeply connected. The other thing with Esticom, it's all very modern. It's all web-based. We don't make acquisitions that we can't integrate deeply, because we just are so long on the single connected platform mission. We just won't even do an acquisition, of something that's like a point solution that would be hard to integrate, because our customers would hate it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And as you say, if they're already in there and you're doing deals together, then it makes perfect sense. They know you, you know them. It's just a matter of getting the price right. And then how difficult was it from like making the decision, right? Esticom, the guys agreeing the price, getting it done. Have you literally just acquired all their staff? They're still there. They're now just under the Procore umbrella.
Yeah, they've been one of the real delightful integrations. Everyone's different, and we did a few in 2021 that we still a little indigestion from, but I have to say Esticom has been just a delight. The whole team's there. You know, I still work with the founders on a regular basis. They're passionate about what they do, and yeah, it's integrated into Procore now. You know, if it looks like Procore. There's always things, there's plenty of integration work to do. There's another 18 months of details to make sure that estimating looks, feels, acts, and shares data like to the extent we want it to. That's not something that goes away quickly. But if you had just used Procore for the first time, I don't think you would know at this point. I don't think you would be like, oh, this was an acquisition. I think you'd be able to, it would just feel natural.
Brilliant. And that's a great starting point. I mean, that's exactly what you want. You don't want 2.5, 3 years of paying for your customers. And how's it been received by your customers? Obviously, your customers, first and foremost, you came to them, you offered the construction management and the cloud software and delivery. What were they excited about the whole pre-con and estimating? Obviously, they're hearing now that you guys are going to be focused on it more in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to remind everyone that, you know, general contractors do estimates in the middle of a project, right? And so it's been so far Esticom and now just Procore estimating has exceeded our expectations. So we set targets and we're beating the targets, and we're just finding use cases all over the place, not just in the pre-con department, but in course of construction. I mean, Procore is, you know, our core products are world-class at managing change. And when there's change, there's a new scope of work and a new estimate. And so it's in those moments that we've been able to really get kind of estimating into the entire course of construction workflow, which I think also begs the question, like, why are we separating this stuff in the first place? Because honestly, the data you get from these estimates, you should just be tracking through to construction financials so that you can do better estimates the next time. So I think it's so far so good, but customers are, you know, they've been just delighted, and I'm really happy with the progress so far.
Brilliant, love it. And we talked earlier about your experience with data analytics company. I mean, bringing that experience into the construction world. I mean, the construction world have been getting battered for years about innovation and about data and about managing it and delivering it, gathering it. When you first came into Procore and started talking about TUI, what was your thought initially? Were you thinking, oh my God, I'm going into an industry here that is maybe 5 to 10 years behind the industry that I'm leaving? Like, what was your initial thought, and then how has that changed over the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, it is an interesting juxtaposition because I come from data companies, and by that, not even tech, but like data. Shutterstock, for example, is just a data company, right? I mean, yes, there are images there, but it's a very data-driven business. As a head of product, 95% of my decisions were quantitative. Like they're just statistical analysis, A/B testing, and you use your gut once in a while, you know what I mean, to go against the grain. But I think, and then, you know, being at Optimizely, where the mission of the company was, you know, everyone in the world should run A/B tests to figure out what the right treatment is or what the right solution is. It was really different coming to construction. I found that exciting. You know, when I was at an analytics company prior, we would go to companies and we would help them figure out where on the like data maturity curve they were. And we would tell them, well, you're here and this is the next step for you. And we would actually, parts of our company would consult and help companies understand the data maturity curve. And it's true, construction in general is very, very early in the data maturity curve. Now, what that means is that there's wild upside for innovation. So for me, that just sounds like fun. And what that means is there's big, wild swaths of like things we can do with data that have never been done before. You know, I was at Groundbreak last fall, and I on stage, I was saying, when we're building the next hospital, I don't know why we're not looking at the data from the last 500 hospitals that have been built. It seems pretty logical to me. It's all sitting in Procore. Like, if you use it, I can just show you all the RFIs from all the other hospitals that we built, so that when you do your next estimate, you could go, oh, maybe I should change my thinking on this foundation, since that was like, the source of 20% of the RFIs in the last one. And I just, that type of thinking, I think, will happen more and more as pre-con and course of construction collapse into something that is more asynchronous and less of a stage gate.
Yeah. But coming back to your point, that's going to happen in pre-construction. I mean, that is why the huge innovation, you touched on it there, has to happen in pre-construction, because by the time it gets to project managers and superintendents, those big value engineering design decisions have already been made. The budget's been set. The innovation and the data has got to be utilized within pre-construction, because then after that, all you're doing is just gathering it for the next project. Like, you're only really utilizing it and getting real benefit from it at the very beginning. And obviously you touched on that, but how important is it, the data points that we gather? I mean, you could literally go around now, in the hospital that you mentioned, you could have, I would imagine, hundreds, if not thousands of data points that you could gather. How do you advise your customers on those data points, and what do Procore think of it?
Yeah, we have a wonderful woman who's our VP of product for data, Rajitha, and her team spend a lot of time right now when we're working with customers focused on data quality. That's a big effort for us, and so they'll go into a customer and kind of help them understand, like, hey, if you would just standardize the way you do these submittals, the way you do these RFIs, these change events in these 2 or 3 ways, the rich data you get on the other end of that is it's going to be so helpful to you in terms of predicting. And then Procore can actually make better, smarter AI-driven predictions if you could raise the level of data quality. So one thing is, our data team is specifically going into customers and helping them figure out their data quality issues. But I think a whole nother area of innovation that we're pushing is mobile data capture. Because, at the end of the day, if you got somebody in the field and you're asking them to type into their phone and they've got gloves on and the sun's beating down, you're not going to get good data. And so we've been really pushing hard on mobile data capture, because we think that's one of the best ways to inform what's actually happening. So I'll give you an example. We now have AI-driven voice capture on our, on your mobile device. So when you're doing a punch walk or you have an observation, you can just tap and you can just talk into your phone, and the data capture is much cleaner, because we're able to categorize language into different buckets, and it's faster. So doing a punch walk, for example, when you do that, is 50% faster on average. We've actually seen some people do it 10 times faster, depending on the type of building and what the punch walk looks like. But it's just one example of like how data in is going to make things so much better, when you get to financials and then round trip that data to the next estimate. And I think if we think the way data is going in the system in the future is people tapping on an iPad, I think we've got another thing coming. It's not going to happen, right? It's going to come in through reality capture. It's going to come in through voice to text. It's going to come in visually through video and photo. That's how the data is going to go into the system. And we need to do a better job of capturing it, cleaning it, and then using artificial intelligence to drive predictions around the other side.
Absolutely. And that was my next question, is about the innovation side, the AI and the machine learning. I mean, that literally is just starting. If you look at the takeoff software out there, Toggle AI and Work Order, that's the start of an AI ML kind of revolution within construction. How quickly can we ramp that up? Do we have to be careful and manage it properly, or what's your advice on that?
So we have automated area takeoff. So we acquired a company, Indus, in 2021. And Indus, one of the first things they did when they joined Procore was get into takeoffs, 2D to start. And, we've got a lot of the trades, especially ones, like concrete and flooring and roofing and things where you can count cubic feet. And it's going really well. Like the quality of the algorithms that do automated takeoff are getting into the kind of like high 80s or low 90s in terms of confidence interval, which just means like people are trusting them more and more. I see in the usage, because they can tell that the takeoff is pretty good. there's a lot more we can do just by using, AI to look at 2D, and there's still a long roadmap in Procore of that. And then there's a lot more we can do to start looking 3D as well with all of that. And so I think we really are at the beginning of this, but there's nothing to be afraid of here. There's nothing to be cautious of. It's important when you're building a product that's like this, that you have a way out, where if a person doesn't trust on gut, an experienced person doesn't trust the data on gut, that they can easily validate it themselves. And because what you want to do is you just want to build trust on both sides of that machine learning. You want to make sure that as a user, okay, there's some new ML that's on this part of the product, and they'll give it a try, and they'll get comfortable with its level of accuracy for different things. And over time, the accuracy will just improve and improve and improve. So it's really exciting. We've gotten, let's see, at this point, we're trying to get, it's funny, at Procore, we actually have a stat that we measure, which is AI coverage. And it's really early days, but what this means is across the entire platform, how much of the tools have some AI, some magic working in the background for different customers. Because we actually think the whole thing should be powered by AI. And you know how you feel about this, Gareth, when you're using a piece of software and it's like, I didn't have to write that field. You could have figured it out.
Yeah.
As a user, right? When like software is being lazy, and like you're asked to fill out a form or do something where that data was like three fields ago or 2 steps before, and you're redoing it as a person, that's so annoying. That's what AI is for. It should automate repetitive tasks, and it should predict the best next action to take.
But Wyatt, you're 100% right. But what's happening there while that's happening is you're learning, the machine's learning. So it's like a two-way street. It's like ChatGPT now. Like you can see when you punch in stuff and you're using it, it's blatantly telling lies. Now it's telling lies, but you're correcting it. So the next time it'll learn and we'll all be good. So yeah, AI within construction has to be the same. But can you imagine, out of all those 4 platforms that you've just described, that AI are in all 4? I mean, the pre-construction and the pre-construction manager, the estimator's job, it just gets completely different. He does all the high-level, high-touch stuff that he should be doing from his experience.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard it before, but some estimator I was talking to was like, "Oh, I don't let my team do takeoffs. That's just coloring." I can't remember who said that, but I
imagine the estimators coming in the morning with their coloring and crayons in their top pocket.
Yeah, just imagine that. And I agree. It's like, look, AI can do this, a lot of this, and not all of it though. And people should never worry. I'm never worried about people losing jobs. It's just all that happens is you get to work on higher order cognitive stuff that feels to me more human. And what AI is really great at is pulling away the lower order work that you didn't need to be doing in the first place. And so I feel the same about Chat GPT, right? It's like the reason I write like long form is for me, because I want to process my thoughts and put them down into a thing. If I just need to send a silly note to somebody, like they need a recommendation or something, like that's great. I would love to outsource that. And that's what ChatGPT is really, really good at. But if I'm writing because I have a product strategy around how I'm going to connect bidding and estimating, well, I'm writing, it's for me, it's for my own cognitive understanding to make sure that my thinking is clear and that I have a thesis and that thesis can be proved out. And that's sort of the difference between, I think, AI helping us do our work and the kind of fear I think folks have around AI.
Yeah, and listen, see that fear, it has to be diminished. I'll tell you why. Because if we don't embrace technology and get it working, we will never be able to build the amount of hospitals, schools, apartments, homes. It just won't happen. Not with the amount of backlog we've had since COVID. So you're 100% right. Now, give me an idea now, Wyatt, of what's exciting you. And particularly, I mean, I could talk to you about the whole suite of products, but give me specifically within pre-construction and estimating, is there one thing or 2 things that you're thinking, you know what, if we can get this right, then I think it will be a game changer?
Yeah, I think there's 2 I really want to share that are both kind of very new, but taking off and going fast. Our Procore Construction Network is one, and then I'm also pretty excited about 3D Takeoff. Those are both kind of two different directions I'll take it, but you can go right now and like look at the Procore Construction Network. It's been live for about a year. We're pushing 65,000 subcontractors on it and growing fast. And now we're going to go international later in the year. But, we're building basically like the LinkedIn for construction companies. And this Procore Construction Network, it has what jobs folks have worked on. You can store your private pre-qualification data. And it's an open network that leverages the power of the internet. So, it's something that it's going to help people connect. It's going to help people understand what projects others have worked on. And under the hood, what we're doing is we're building the construction graph. We're building a graph of people and projects and objects like estimates or budgets or RFIs. And we're building a giant graph of how people get stuff done in construction. And construction hasn't had that yet. And I think it's going to be pretty game changing. I've already got a lot of customers. I was just talking to Todd the other day at Rogers O'Brien, and he's just like, I love this. Every time I'm looking at one of our jobs, I'm doing a quick search on the network to figure out who are the subs in this area, what kind of subs what choices do we have, who are the folks that are professional and have done projects this size and the scale. So yeah, the Procore Construction Network it's pretty exciting, and it's very early days. I've always said that, one of the reasons I joined Procore, when I was talking to Tui, I said, man, Tui, when you go on a job site, it's a network. It's not, and if you look at the technology that we work in, they're all like box software, Gareth. Yeah. Every single piece of tech is like, here's a thing that does a job for you. Buy this for $9.99. And it's like, but that's not the way construction works. Construction works like a network. You go on a job site and you see there is a bunch of people who work at a bunch of disparate companies who are connected contractually. That's as networked of industry I've ever seen. And so I think it's really exciting to start to get into the network side of construction and pull that thread. And I'm really excited for the future of it. So that's one thing that gets me pretty pumped up, is this Procore Construction Network. Also, now in our bidding tool, you could just search that network and like add folks to your bids like in real time. So that's going pretty well. The other stuff that I'm really excited about, 3D Takeoff, is something that I'm like working with the team on a lot today. I think, the fastest way to reconcile like what it looks like with what it costs, is integrated projects. So, we leverage assembly-based takeoff. So material assemblies, instead of relying on granular levels of detail in the model down to the material level, users get to detailed estimates earlier in the project. So I was just talking to you about this before we recorded, but I often hear a lot of folks in the pre-con department ask like, hey, how can we make sure that our customers are buying pre-con services? And I think one way to help is to make sure that the data from pre-con is visible and present and useful across the whole course of construction. Yeah. And that's for us at Procore where 3D Takeoff comes in, because effectively we're extracting quantities from the model, associating quantities with materials, and then pushing those into the estimate. And then the estimate gets pushed right into construction financials, all within a single platform. Yeah. And when you have visibility of that data across the whole course of construction, now you're pulling in the back office, you're pulling in the pre-con department all together to look at the same outcomes.
Brilliant. I love that. And that has to be the way forward. If you think about data, and we talked about the flow on the one single platform, it should be seamless. But the data is most important at the beginning. And if you get the data right at the beginning and keep track of it, and then be able to display it and graph it. And we're all visual people. I mean, majority of people who will be very high level could talk about it without a visual, but owners, architects, even specialty contractors, they need to see visually how the data has worked in the past, why it should work in the future. And it just gives confidence to both the subcontractors and the client.
Yeah, and I think with owners in particular, once the toothpaste is out of the bottle, I don't know what you do. I mean, I've been in a room where an owner is looking, it has the sub, the GC, an architect together, and the subcontractor goes, hey, if you move that pillar over 5 feet, I could roll the truck right in there, just load the steel off the truck, and I'd save you a crane. Like, once an owner sees that, I don't know how do you unsee that. You know what I mean? You're sort of like, oh, okay, I need to do this all the time. Like, I need constructability and cost and design in the room, integrated into one single thing. And if you pushed me and said, Wyatt, I want to save money on my next construction project, I'd say, okay, cool. Well, optimizing the course of construction, I can save you 2 to 3 to 4%. Connecting pre-con to course of construction, I can save you 5, 10, 15%.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
those are
all are good.
But they're huge numbers. They're huge numbers when you think about it. And not only huge numbers, they're huge numbers if you do it, and it's not even going to cost you a resource. It's going to be in technology that you're going to have not only for that project, but you're going to have it for the next project and the next project and the project after that. So you're not saving 5%. You're actually saving 5% by 20.
Compounding.
Yeah, exactly. Unbelievable. And that's the way it's got to be thought. And don't get me wrong, it has to be communicated properly. And funny, I did a podcast with the guys over at Wyatts recently, who they're actually going to advance in pre-construction. They're going to talk about this as well. And they're talking about, they're literally running their company via storytelling. And they are putting a huge amount of resources and learning and development, and they're just telling stories. And they're telling stories of previous projects through data and through visualization.
Oh, I'd love to connect with them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll put you in touch with them. Yeah. Their podcast was brilliant. It was half an hour. It was condensed. It was focused. I'll send it on to you. But then if you're in advancing pre-construction, they're going to be on stage. I think it's Wednesday. So I'll be there to see them. Yeah, they're brilliant. They're very, very
great.
good.
I'll be there.
Yeah. Cool. So cool, Wyatt. Well, listen, this has been incredible. I want to thank you as well for your time. Obviously, you've listened to the podcast before. We've had other people on. It's important to get the tech companies on to give us a visualization and understanding of what's coming up next. Now, is there anything else you want to quickly kind of throw out there before we head off?
If you get a chance, check out that FMI report we did. We believed so deeply in the power of Precon that we wanted to poke around and do an official study that we could publish. But I think we found some good business outcomes for people performing, pre-construction. We saw that 40% average GC and SCs report higher client satisfaction, which results in repeat business. And respondents also said more than 50% of their portfolio is repeat business. So we're actually seeing happier clients who engage in pre-con. And then there's a downside to that survey if you want to go poke around. I'd say, respondents reported that they estimate rework costs to be 19% of the total project costs, and only 30% is recoverable. That means 70% of rework is being absorbed, which is the real money. And I think this is where, what we're seeing is most of those customers in that survey disconnected tools, one-off solutions that aren't connected to everything else. And that's what's causing a lot of the pain. And I think this is where I think we have a lot of innovation and a long ways to go. So I'm just excited I want to come back here and show you, Gareth, in about a year and a half, how a bunch of these projects have turned out where we have like 3D takeoff connected to estimating, connected to bidding, connected to financials. I think we'll have some real exciting stories to share.
Brilliant. No, listen, we're stinging off the same hymn sheet. That we always say it on the podcast, the future of construction is pre-construction. And then within pre-construction is tech and talent. But it's funny too, because those young companies that are innovating, that are focusing on pre-construction, are performing much better than the historical companies that are focusing. Maybe they're not focusing on anything, or the operations side. Pre-construction's where it's at. Anyway, Wyatt, you're a legend. Thank you very much. I'll see you in Phoenix in May.
Cool. I'll see you there. Thank you so much.